Mickey Mouse here when it is 4 o'clock. So are we ready to get started?
Yep, we are live.
Okay. This is, well, actually, Mr. Wobser was unable to attend this after he had scheduled it. So yes, he might take over. So it won't be as smooth as if he was running the meeting, but I'll try my best. So this meeting is a combination of the Appropriations Committee and the Water and Sewer Committee. And I believe this meeting is called to basically clarify the location of the utilities to the Sheets facility and basically to get council's approval on any changes or any locations or that initially we're talking about. So,
Mr. Marino, can I add to that?
yes, sir.
The concerns and the reason I requested the meeting, so that it's clear for the record, is that this is a new process for the city. No time, in my recollection, have we ever appropriated this type of money, particularly in this case, the $3 million, and not had criterion upon which my office would be able to release those funds or pay for those bills. So the most significant part of this from the point of view of my office is that these two committees establish the criterion upon which I'm allowed to release the funds.
Okay. I guess we'll go ahead. I believe Jeremy is going to be presenting him.
Yeah,
so
Jeremy is
he
on.
can explain the changes that have been made.
I guess I would just clarify though, in the legislation that for the appropriation, we did put criteria related to receiving a copy of the Jobs Ohio incentive agreement. So I guess, are there other specific issues that, given that you request this, I guess, what are you looking for from today's meeting?
I guess it's going to evolve as we get through the meeting. I'll have some specific questions. You can see what the council committee's pleasure is, and we'll go from there. But I will need committee reports from Water and Sewer Appropriations that clearly identify that criteria have been met, that they're all in agreement as what that criterion is. Because the legislation, it was vague, and I can't issue money based on you and I interpreting council's intent. It needs to be council that tells me what their intent is. That's clear from.
Okay, and then hopefully through this meeting, you will tell us what that criteria is that you're.
I would assume that by the time we're done with this meeting, we'll all have a clear idea of what you guys expected and where it's at. And it's good because that way it's being vetted publicly as well. So I appreciate that we're being recorded.
All right, Jeremy, you there? Able to share?
Yep. So I will share my screen real quick. All right. Does everyone see that?
It's up.
All right. So this is I wanted to give a big overview of what our existing utilities are in the area, what we're proposing, and kind of where that Sheets site is. So as you can see in this red area right there, that's the Sheets building site that's east to the Lowe's distribution right now. With that, the green lines that have the arrows, those are our existing sanitary lines, and this blue with the red hydrant symbols, that's obviously our existing water lines. So right now, to serve that site sanitary wise for this whole service, we have a 10-inch gravity down here, but that pretty much with the depth that is right now, if we ever expanded that, one, that's a small line for us to tie into and to ever do any kind of expansion. It's pretty much taken us over to this point. We did some engineering work quite a few years ago to look to see how far we could extend that. And that was roughly about the area we can go. And like I said, that's a 10-inch line. So we got a very small line. So when we brought this originally to you guys, and we were talking about all the road work and the Sheets building site and all that kind of stuff. Right now, up in this north corner, I have a 24-inch sanitary sewer that actually goes to our corridor sewer. There is a 24-inch stub that is to the east already. So what we were expecting to do, or what we were planning on doing, is running that sanitary sewer down Township Road 99 all the way over 230. With that depth and that sewer size already, that already gives us enough capacity. If there's any expansion over to, let's say, the north over to the east here or over in the Bright Road area, that will still be able to serve that area because of the depth and because of the size. Right now, you can see over here on 212, just east of Bright Road, we don't have any sanitary sewer. So within these sites, it'd be between this site and the site north of 212 and east of Bright Road, it'd be hard to serve sewer unless we drag that across, because this small 10-inch over here would not be able to serve it. South of that and even far east off the page, there's still no sewer over there to serve it. So looking at kind of feasibility going into the future, being able to serve sites and stuff like that for sanitary, dragging that 24-inch is kind of going to be one of our prime focuses to get there. One, to sheets to serve the site for sheets, as well as any kind of future expansion that may be coming down the line. Now with the water line, originally what we were looking at doing,
Jeremy,
yeah,
Chairman, I have a question though, just on the sewer.
Yeah.
The 24-inch that you're proposing, that goes into the pump station there,
correct.
and there is capacity in that pump station for this.
Correct. Yeah. So when we ran these numbers, and there was also numbers ran as part of McLean expansion 2, not just with the pump station, but for our sanitary and throughout there. We evaluated those numbers, and I don't have them off the top of my head, but we did evaluate that. It is a larger pump, so it will be able to hold that capacity. And obviously that 24-inch line is sized for future expansion in that kind of northern eastern area for that. So we do have enough capacity in that. That is also one of the long-term control plans with our flow monitoring and stuff like that. We'll be able to kind of solidify what that hard number is that we'd be able to provide to the north and to the east.
Okay, thank you.
So Jeremy, can the pump station that you're talking about handle the 24-inch line flowing at its capacity or at its maximum?
Yeah. So looking at those designs and that, that's not going to be a 24 as you're going all the way to, say, if you took this to 236. I know that's a pretty far stretch, but that's sized down for certain capacities. So, I mean, there will be consideration. You'll have to make sure what they're putting into that sewer is not going to, stress the system. That'll be something as people are coming on board. The sheet site, they are very small volume. I think it's only about 50,000 gallons a day. So it's not much, but as we're going on, we always got to evaluate what the next person is coming. Are they 1 million gallons a day? Are they 10 million gallons a day? I guess that's a little much, but as those are coming on, we have to evaluate if that system can fully hold it. But with that 24-inch line and a gravity sewer, if it's flowing at full capacity, we're confident with what that usage is coming into it, that will be fine.
Thank you.
all right, water lines?
All right, so water lines. So originally what we were thinking about doing, there's a 16-inch line over here that has a stub. When we originally kind of gave the estimate, what we were looking at doing is we were going to pull that 16-inch line and extend that all the way down to this site to feed the sheets building, to give them redundancy and kind of that loop system on that. And then also to set us up for redundancy and looping of our systems for any future expansion. After we dove into it and kind of looked at what was on the roadway, what existing utilities were there, and kind of, cost saving alternates as we got into what actually sheet site's going to look like, how their fire lines are going to interact. We started working with them and looking at running this up the 230 area and pulling it back to serve this northern area. So with this new configuration running up to 230, this will allow them to have 2 tie-in points on 230 and then also one onto the 212. So what this does is this creates redundancy in their system and also our system. So water is kind of flowing through there at all times. If we just had, kind of a one leg system or one branch system, if something happened to their line within this or, any of our lines, and say we had to shut this down, that can really cut down on the amount of water that is coming to their site for fire suppression. Another benefit of pulling on this on 230, one, it's going to be in a roadway right away, so maintenance of that is going to be very easy. And then also where that is configured now, that's also setting up a lot more opportunities for expansion to the north and to the east, because that water line is really going to be there. Because if, say, you took this site and you flipped it to the property to the east here, they're going to want that loop system too for their redundancy, to make sure they have enough fire flow through there. And I have some of these dotted lines. I don't know how easy they are to see. But what I'm talking about in the future, I think I brought up in the council meeting about in the future about building redundancy and looping our system and stuff like that. You know, once we get up to this project right here and we're stopping at 99 on 230, you know, if anyone expands to the east or north of that, then what we can do is kind of loop that around down to another main line that's over here. And we're creating that loop system that's able to keep water flow moving through that whole area. One of the big factors, I guess, with this as well is looking at a cost savings. Like I brought up, this originally was about 880,000 to run down through there. Really, the only benefit that we're going to get from running that is we're going to run one big transmission line to feed the sheet site and then any kind of future expansion to the north here. So to kind of see if we could cut down on the amount of water funds that we'd be using and still serve the same purpose and accomplish the same goals, we started looking at alternative runs that would help out with that. And, you know, having sheets on board is helping out a lot with that too, because they'll be able to establish easements and stuff like that for that. But like I said, this was about 880,000 running all the way down to here. Looking at quick numbers and kind of estimating what we're looking at right now, estimating that's going to be about 675,000 of running this on 230, and it's going to serve the same purpose for what we are. So that way we're not running, you know, a 5,000 foot transmission line just for 2 taps. With this situation, we'll be able to pull multiple taps off of it. Large building sites will be able to have their fire suppression redundancy throughout there. And then this will also be, you know, like we've talked about, this will be a city maintained water line in the future. So that will also give us expansion on our system in the long run as well.
Very good. So as you, oh, go ahead, Jeremy.
No, I was just going to say, so that's kind of a quick rundown, or, you know, kind of talking about why we've looked at some other things. You know, 2 big things is we want to make sure that we are efficiently using the funds that you guys appropriated to us, and 2, that we are still serving future sites, and also creating redundancy for our system and any other system that is going to be tying on to that as well.
How does the proposed water line that you're talking about serve potential future uses north of Lowe's and north of the Sheets site?
So what we are be looking at is obtaining easements through the Sheets site, because this is going to be a dead area, and we'd be attaining easements to get to this point, which would be serving here. You can barely see up here, but there's a 10-inch line that is up here as well. So when we're looking at sites as prospective people coming into that, if we have a line coming back here and they have a 10-inch up here, they're creating that redundancy that we're creating, you know, in the same spot over in the Sheets property. So what we'd be doing is pulling that back over to this location, so that way we can serve any of that north. This is within the roadway right away. So if anyone ever expanded over to 230, that could be simply pulled up and be tapped off of. But just pulling right down this long road, it seemed like you're gonna, like I said, you're gonna have quite a bit of footage of unused pipe that's going to be treated more of a transmission line than anything. So we'll still be able to serve properties to the north in multiple ways.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Jeremy, I have one more question before we get any farther. The size of the line going down 230, what size is that?
Right now, we have it figured at a 16-inch. We need to, you know, kind of finalize what is Sheets' pull demand on that, what are they looking at? we might be able to size that down to a 12-inch. But we're going to have to make sure that what sheets are going to be pulling off of. If we go 12, I guess what I don't want to do is say we're going to go with a 12-inch and then all of a sudden they have so much pull off of it or anything like that, then we're going to kick ourselves in the future and said we should have did that as a 16-inch. So they're still finalizing their numbers on that, what their pull is going to be. We haven't had any hard data from them yet, but I have a 16-inch figured. If worst comes to worst, then, or I guess if best case scenario, however you want to say, we could size that down to a 12, because that line that's on 212 right now is actually a 20-inch all the way down through there. So that would be a consideration that I would be working with water distribution. Jason, I think I seen Jason there as well, to kind of talk about on what their demand would be, what future demands could be pulling from that, and how that's going to affect our system. Because ultimately, we would never want to run our system dry in a fire situation.
Jeremy, there's two horizontals through the Sheets property and then a vertical coming up the west side of the Sheets property. Is that our lines, or is that Sheets's?
That will be Sheets's fire line loops. That's not 100%. That's just kind of talking with them, going back and forth of what they're thinking. They could have only one off of 230. But they are wanting to have one off of, at least two taps of some sort to create kind of that redundancy circle. But those would all be private lines.
Okay, thank you.
Jeremy, do you have a future plan? Obviously when we increase an industrial park, we make a loop, you have industrial drive, it's a loop, it's an industrial park. What does this future look like other than we are putting these utility through 99? I feel like we're putting it on the backside, but it's not really like an industrial park feel. It's not like what we currently have. So do you have a picture of the future of what we're planning to make that loop?
So are you saying for the sanitary because it's on the backside?
Well, I'm saying in general, we usually have, we go into Roki or is it Nissan or whatever that's across the street on Bright Road. It kind of comes in and it makes a loop. We did McLean, it comes in, you make a park. So I don't feel like we're making a park with what we're doing for development yet. So I feel like maybe you're telling me you have a future plan of, how many sites are we going to have and where can we develop and what's going to be in there.
So I think I can answer this, Jeremy, and then feel free to add in. Well, right now, there's no specific plan for this area. These are individual development parcels, right? This is not a whole tall timbers industrial park area. So we really can't give you specific plans on how we would develop it. Really what Jeremy just went through is how we're trying to locate utilities in a manner that they are most versatile, that no matter who develops in this region first and what layout and access they need, we're able to provide it. So if you're asking, do we have an entire development plan for this area? No.
But typically we do. We don't typically put in infrastructure for development that's not there.
This is development that.
Well, you just said it's not a park, it's not anything yet. We're just putting it in case somebody wants to be there.
We're putting it in for Sheets, who is the planned development at this point in time. We don't have any development planned outside of that.
So Jeremy, you talk about 230 for bringing the water in. Could sewer have come in that way as well, and you could have taken care of Sheets? I guess that's all I'm saying. I'm trying to look at our big plan when we're investing millions of dollars. I know we did One Energy, and I can't remember if anybody can recall, did we put water, sewer, or both all the way to One Energy that ran right through the middle of Ohio Logistics to that next road over?
There's both sanitary and water for that site, but this is kind of going into, yes, in long story short, if we really wanted to, you could serve sheets from, kind of maybe not sanitary. Sanitary is going to be pretty tough. Water, they could pull off of that, but that does not create any redundancy for them. Normally, you don't like that as a loop system because you have just pretty much a main line going up that if something happens to that main line, you're shutting your whole water system down. But with the road work that's going to be going on with this, if in a year or 2 years another site comes on board and we have these roadways done and we did not pull these expansions of the water line or the sewer line with those, now the city is going back and we're extending these lines and we're destroying new roads that we could have pulled in the future. So you got to look at what could be coming. You don't know what was coming in the future. Some of these sites, this site just to the east of Sheets property, that could be one big site or that could be multiple sites. I don't know what that's going to look like, but we got to have these water lines and sanitary lines set up. So if something does come, then I can, when we go to the table with these developers and stuff like that, and they're saying, hey, where do you have water lines? Where do you have sanitary lines and what they look like? We can say, hey, we have a water line here. We have a sanitary here. What's your guys' ultimate system want to look like? And we're able to serve you guys. If we only pretty much, if Sheets only tied into, say they tied into that 10-inch that's down on McLean and they only tied into the 12-inch or the 20-inch that's on 212, then any future expansion that's to the north, to the east, or anything like that, we're going to be back in these same conversations, but then we're going to be talking about tearing up roadways again or obtaining additional right-of-ways because we didn't have the opportunity to put them in as the roadways were being built. So it's tough to say what the plans are going to look like, but we always got to set them up. So when someone does bring a plan to us that we're saying, hey, we're readily available for you. We have these lines here. We can make that system work. We can create a McLean. We can create a Tall Timbers because we have those utilities readily available.
That being said, and with the changes that you're proposing here, has there been any discussion on the administration side, particularly in light of your comments that there's a lot of consideration given the future expansion here to assessing fees to those lines to recapture some of this exorbitant cost for the extra?
So, a couple of things. First of all, this is not a significant change from what was discussed. At least I don't believe so. When we discussed this in executive session, we clearly stated that this was the site. We had the overall kind of road plans that we were discussing. We did not go into details on the specific location of the designs. Personally, I trust the engineers to put together the best designs that are going to be, one, best serve our existing customers and system, and then two, make sure that we're positioned well for the future. We did early on, say, okay, does it make sense to do tax increment financing or things like that? I feel like at this point, we're past that point in the conversation. The city saw this as an opportunity and decided to take the approach of us funding it rather than doing a special tax assessment or a tip. And so I think that would be, personally, I think that would be a little bit shaky on the conversation.
I don't think that's what I'm suggesting. I think I'm asking if you consider just our standard recap, like a developer puts a line in, over 10 years, they can recapture a portion of their costs based on front footage with the line going across. So you've got a line there on the north side that's running however far all the way to the east edge of the property. If somebody between where that line exists now and that east edge of that property wants to tap in, there's been no proposal that I'm aware of. And is this council and does the administration want to discuss potentially charging a fee to tap into that line so that we can recapture some of this money that we're investing?
So are you talking about for the Sheets property or the surrounding properties?
I'm talking about for the future,
Okay.
not the Sheets property.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to clarify because I don't want to start changing the rules of the
No.
game.
You've made a promise to Sheets. I don't think anybody should renege on that.
No, we have not had a conversation beyond that. I'd be happy to evaluate. Obviously, we would charge any of our standard tap fees and different things like that for anyone accessing it. But we have not discussed any sort of requirement assessment for the surrounding properties to be developed at this point in time.
Jeremy, with Township Road 99, so with tearing it up to, or building it out with a sanitary on there, under there, so you're basically saying you do not see us going into that road again for a water line?
No, yeah, so the sanitary, I'm actually going to push to the south right-of-way line. It actually widens out kind of once you get to the Lowe's Distribution Center. So I'm going to push it outside of the roadway as much as possible. One of the big things that's fighting me on the north side is there's a gas line and quite a bit of fiber. But working with sheets, what that will be doing, like I was talking about, I instead of being in the roadway, we're setting up easements so I can get across there with a water line, and then those easements will actually, when that's a public line, I also have for maintenance and anything like that. So it'll be pretty much treated as our line. I just don't have to worry about being in the roadway right away. Talking with their design group and stuff, it's really kind of just a grassy area up there. So they didn't really have any problems with any kind of easements that I'd be needing for the water line. They've been pretty receptive with that and working with us. So, expanding that over to the north here, they would pretty much, because we'd be at this point, we'd be up into that northern property where we wouldn't have to worry about going across the roadway, because if it does come down to that point where they're coming across, we would be required to bore underneath the roadway anyways to make that tap.
And then back to the sanitary on Township Road 99. You're saying that should be able to handle everything to the north and to the east, including the east property that abuts County Road 212 there on the south. So that line is the sanitary provider or solution for to the north and to the east.
Yep. So this sanitary would be serving all these sites, this site, and then this will also get us over into this area to feed these areas as well. Because this line right here, and it's pretty shallow. That's our closest sanitary for that area, because the rest of that is all coming through the fallen timbers that's over there by Hamlet Drive. So there's no depth in that. And, that's what I was talking about, that study we did. This 10-inch, it only is going to get us about here. So then now we still have this dead spot, but this 24-inch, looking at it, will serve these whole areas for future expansion. The one thing that's going to happen that would only kind of constraint that would be against us would be elevations, but we're still going to be in the 10 to 12 foot depth range. But if someone even north of this is wanting to tie in, they might have to do a pump station or something like that. But I believe the ground from this level keeps going up at a steady rate. So that's helping us too. But it's set up to serve that whole area.
And that line on County Road 18 that goes to Owens, that's as far as that thing is going, and that's not serving too much more.
I believe that's an 8-inch. So that's pretty much, it was built for that, and that is it.
Okay.
So even the Arnell site couldn't even tie into it.
Jeremy, with Lowe's, we talked about fire suppression and looping. Are they on a dead end line currently? And then how many taps do they have that it wouldn't benefit to come down 99 for them to improve the number of taps for fire suppression or anything? Or are they good? They don't need additional. How many do they have?
I'm not sure how many they have, but I don't believe they would be creating any more taps from this, even if we did pull down 99. They have a lot. That's pretty expansive in the trucks that they have, and that's all built up through there. I think what they have with their fire suppression has been working well with them for a long time. So I don't foresee them ever tapping onto that.
Are they on a dead end line though? Just in general for water?
I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, I could find that out pulling their plans up, because that's all a private system. So that's why you don't see it up there on our GIS. I would assume they would have two down through there.
But Jim, the clarification you're looking for is the fact that we would say, we want to build a sanitary from Township Road, looks like that's 230 to the pump station over there on the west, and then we want to extend the water line up Township Road 230 and then do the street work. Is that, are you looking for the definition of the projects from like a distance thing and line sizes, or?
That's one component we're looking for. Yes, a clear understanding of what the project is, so that we have that. In other words, this isn't a case where we've gone out to bid, we've appropriated money in an ethereal manner. It wasn't defined. So that would be one component. And then a couple of the other components, as was just discussed, if the administration is going to look at the possibility, and if you guys as a water and sewer committee are going to look at the possibility of putting some impact fees on for future development, that would be wise to consider not A or nay, but what those fees would be moving down the road to recapture some of that water and sewer line costs as future developers tie in. And then there's some other things we can talk about after they get through the technical side.
One quick question though, the recoup, I'm just gonna call it recoup fees.
The impact fees.
Impacts, thank you. Is that a necessary part of you paying the bills for this specific project, or that's a conversation that can be had separately?
I think you need to have it up front before you lay the line in. Is it necessary for me to pay the bills? Probably not. But more importantly, this body, as part of their approval of this, I think they would be remiss in not doing their due diligence if they don't say, hey, out of this money that we've appropriated that's going towards water and sewer, we'd like to see X dollars recaptured over the next 10 or 20 years through impact fees. So I think
Yeah,
that's an important aspect of this meeting.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification because you'd sent an email previously saying you weren't gonna pay any portion of money towards this project until you had various items addressed, and I just wanted to make sure that a process that's related to future development isn't going to hinder this project. So
I
just
wouldn't
wanted
pay for,
clarity.
I wouldn't pay for anything unless everything's been done properly. So no, I didn't say that specifically about this project. That generally that's my position and that's my job. In terms of this project, there are things that weren't defined and I don't have them. And council again has never done this. They've never appropriated this kind of money without putting rules around it. And it hasn't been vetted publicly, and doing this is allowing us to take that step. So from this aspect, knowing what it is, having council design it, you agreeing to whether that's going to be a 12 or a 16-inch water line and where it's going to go, you guys agreeing to whether it's going to be a 24-inch sewer line going down. Those are all important components to me being able to pay. I can't pay for something you didn't agree to. So yes, from that aspect, that's what I need. And then there's a few other things we should
Okay,
talk.
have we got the technical part out of the way? The questions for Jeremy, committees, I guess. Does anybody have any questions on the committees for Jeremy? No? Okay. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
The only question I had, I guess, with this north-south line, I understand. There's three horizontals, right? There's one third of the way up, 2/3 of the way up, and one at the top. at the
Correct.
north end. Okay. Are they building the north, east-west line as part of this project?
No,
No,
that's
that's
proposed.
future.
That's future. And yeah.
So
So
where's the north-south line end? And that's, is it going all, it's going all the way to 99?
to 99.
Yes, great.
Yeah, and I think that would be my only concern. I think obviously we want to provide specificity sufficient for paying bills and clean audit and all that jazz. I also just want to be very clear that if Jeremy, as the city engineer, needs to make adjustments to the design to accommodate the development, I also don't think every time he changes something within the parameters of the previously appropriated funds, that he should have to come back and say, hey, we moved this 10 feet to the left.
Well, and I think that's a good point. I think Jim and Jeremy do a wonderful job working together. That's why you see limited legislation there that will work through those things. That's why we have the folks. We have.
In my feeling, that's Jeremy's job.
Yes, Jeremy's engineer, yeah.
He's the engineer. I mean, we as councilmen, we can approve the money and stuff, but if he needs to make some changes to this project, I.
As long as it'll pass audit.
We'll move it at 10,
I mean, to moving something or.
move it at 10 feet doesn't, that's not
No,
big.
yeah.
I'm worried about, I just wonder if Jeremy said it himself, he was gonna make the water line one size, but it's potential it could be larger. And per our previous water and sewer committee meetings, like the conversations up in Van Buren, you know, I say, if when in doubt, and you're putting this in, go bigger
Well,
than
I say, I
smaller.
believe right now he's talking about a 16. If he was going to change anything, it would be to a 12. So I think you
So
should
we're,
go with the plan of a 16.
and then if it goes
if it
smaller,
goes smaller, it's not, it's
yep,
costing
okay.
any more money.
Yeah,
know.
yeah, sorry, not to cut it, but the 16, I mean, that's a large line that can move some water. So that will provide ample amount of water for anyone that's coming in. One of the things we want to look at, like I said, is I don't want to size this so big that then we're having problems in the long run. And I also don't want to size it too small that I'm running it dry. So it is a lot of technical figuring back and forth. Working with Jason and his crews to ensure that we're not hurting anything. But I think a 16 would be the biggest we would go. Like Randy was saying, if anything, I would go down to a 12, but I wouldn't feel comfortable going any smaller than a 12.
So, but you're asking, but we would be approving 16.
Yes.
Correct.
Up to 6.
So, yeah, okay.
It's gonna be 14. That's what's tough.
So do these two committees, I guess for me, I'm not questioning what Jeremy is doing as an engineer, but I think as council and as committee, are we committing to this area where this is where we want to see development go since we are investing over here? So are we going to talk with economic development and say, this is the direction we want our industrial park to be going. This is where we want to see people investing. So we get a return on our investment if we do a rotary fee, or we have more of a pod because we're encapsulating the water so it's not a dead end line. That's what I want to hear from these two committees, that this is what we're committing to. And if we are, we need to be having that conversation with economic development that, hey, we have a commitment here.
So I can speak, I won't speak for economic development, but I can tell you that currently all of the projects that have been looking that would need significant infrastructure have been looking in this area. These are the properties that there is significant enough land to be able to do any large investment. Additionally, all the other areas that are currently within the city corporation limits already have infrastructure accessible to them if they're doing a smaller development.
So there is a plan then. There has to be. That's the biggest frustration for me. There has to be a plan. How
there is
far
a
can these?
concept. There's not a
How
specific
far
plan.
how far can these line extensions, if we go 16, how much further north can we go before we have to have another conversation that we can't meet the infrastructure need? Or how much further to the east can we go past what we're seeing in this map? That's important to
I
council.
think one of the reasons that we're sitting here talking about a 24-inch running along 99, perfect example, that this conversation didn't happen and planned for that. That's why we can't tap into the 10-inch below it, because it wasn't planned big enough. So now we're having to plan ahead so we don't have to have this conversation in the future because we undersize the line with the what if.
So there must be a concept of how far.
When
we
that
can go.
10-inch was built, was there a concept to go put sheets in? No.
No, we were keeping everything on 212. We weren't looking to the north at that time. And
Well-
that's all I'm saying. We're committing millions of dollars. And and Jeremy's the engineer. Great, fine. But what's our commitment as appropriations and water and sewer? What is our message to the community with our investment? Are we committing to the community? We want to see this grow within 10 years with 3 more companies with X amount of jobs? Or are we going to come back over to the McLean side? Or are we going to hop across 75? We need to have a vision.
So I can speak between the land use plan, zoning, the investment into 9975, the planning that we've been doing with 212 and 236, all of these things have been part of the concept that this is the primary industrial corridor and the key area for industrial investment. So if that's what you're looking for, yes, that is what is specifically what we have been working for. It's not like we've been saying, hey, this is the grand plan, but I think if you look at all of the little dominoes that have been set up over the last 10 years and have been executed upon, that is that is exactly what is occurring here. Can I specify that we want specific businesses on these properties or how large or what types? Not at this point in time. That's a separate conversation that I know we've been having a little bit as part of strategic planning. But yes, Councilwoman, the idea is that this area, whether it be in the limited property still available by McLean, if it's on the property on 180, if it's the property along 212 or 99, yes, that is why that's part of this investment. And that was part of the executive session months ago.
To me, why would we want to undersize this and cut off opportunity to expand these other properties? I mean, if we went small, after committing, what, $3 million? To me, we're shooting ourselves in the foot.
But don't you think the message should be then, develop that way?
We're leaving ourselves open to that development. We don't want to shut it off.
Yeah, and that's,
I mean,
by
that's,
by extending the infrastructure there, that makes that statement pretty loud. And I know in the conversations that we had exec session, am I allowed to?
Yeah,
reference
I shared the documents at this point.
I know we discussed the fact that the infrastructure build opens up more area to ready development. And while we didn't have this kind of specificity in that meeting, we knew what we were talking about, which is water, sanitary, and the improvement in Township Road 99.
yeah, that was my understanding.
Yeah, so right now on the water line, you're talking still roughly $900,000. It sounds like, Jeremy, is that correct?
It with this relocation, it should be less than that, you know, from what numbers we're seeing right now in construction.
Yeah, six and change on the sewer, I heard you say, yeah.
No, that was the water line, so that,
Good, okay,
That's on the water.
so I guess the bigger question to that is not if you guys oversize it, but how much of that investment would you like to recapture ideally if everything did develop out up there? And that's the bigger question
I think
for the water and
that's-
sewer.
I think that's something that water and sewer should have a separate meeting on, have the discussion.
Yeah, I think
have
that's a
that
good idea.
detail. I don't think doing it here is going to do
This
us.
is-
Yeah, I'm not advocating.
We
that
don't
you
have,
do.
we don't have information to discuss that properly.
No, I want to clarify that is something you intend to review, so that helps me.
From our committee's though, point of view, for this meeting, I mean, I would think we're basically saying, the specific, we're endorsing, the city engineer's plan for a 16-inch water line extending on Township Road 230 and however big that sanitary was, 24-inch sanitary extending east on Township Road 99 to the intersection of Township Road 230. From water and sewer standpoint, we're endorsing that.
We're endorsing, that was in line with our intent and the executive meeting.
Correct. So,
Executive session.
and I don't know what appropriations.
Well, I could go into that if you guys are ready.
Yeah, I think,
Well, do we want to, do we want to,
I don't need a motion.
do we want a report out of that, or a committee report recommendation out of water and sewer?
That would be helpful for me.
Okay.
so should I have, since I've never done a dual, so. should
So
I have-
we're doing water and sewer.
You'll have two
Okay.
separate
Yeah.
motions.
Two separate motions. One water and sewer. and appropriation.
Well,
You're doing great, Randy.
that's just the minutes.
Yeah,
Committee report recommendation is, I move that we recommend what I brilliantly stated just before, which is,
okay, let me see.
which is
this here.
specifically, Jeremy, don't take your hand away. The 16-inch water line on Township Road 230, extending north to the intersection of Township Road 99. And a 24-inch sanitary extending east on Township Road 99 to the intersection of Township Road 230.
The unusual thing you're doing in that motion is that green block in the upper north corner, you normally wouldn't extend beyond the red through the green. So that's the benefit of council members that don't participate in this kind of thing.
So
you would normally stop at the edge of the property.
Okay.
And you're extending one property north beyond that. I think it's one property. When I looked at it.
Are we approving Township Road 99 to Township Road 230? Is that what we had talked about stopping?
Yeah, so that was the plan, obviously with the legislation that's in front of you guys right now, the thought process is that, and conversations with the county engineer, he would like to have them do the work, so we would enter into an agreement for them to oversee the project. They would be doing the work, and that
Would they
just,
be doing the utility work, the sanitary?
no, that just the road work.
Is the main entrance to the north on Township Road?
If I, and Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you've been talking to Sheets recently, I believe the truck traffic is off of the truck traffic would be off of 99 and the employees parking, and the employee would be off. Employees off of 99 and trucks off of 230.
No,
That's-
switch, flip
Yeah,
that.
the truck traffic off of 99 and the employee parking off of 230.
So there's gonna be like a special redesign on the intersection over there off of 212.
Yep, so we're kind of trying to create that almost
Are we
like
gonna put a traffic light there too, or no?
Where?
to the west. No,
What, 99 to 212?
212 and 230 for semi-traffic?
that was not the original plan because the truck traffic was going to be coming primarily off the highway and then going their Distribution Drive and then coming along Township Road 99. I believe the county engineer has been in some discussions with Sheets recently about looking at potentially putting a stoplight there. That's not our preferred design because of the number of stoplights that are already along that roadway. It is not ideal, but that is currently in discussions, my understanding, with ODOT, Engineer Cade, and Sheets.
There's no widening of 230 then for semis to turn in. I
do
mean,
not
it's
believe-
wider than 99, obviously, but.
I don't believe there was going to be any reconfiguration of 230 itself.
Maybe a turn lane for employees coming in, but that would be
Restricting.
restriping essentially. It's already wide enough.
So 230 is employees. I thought 230 was semis.
Nope.
99 is semis.
Correct.
We annex the sheets.
Do we have like a,
They've
do
already
we have
submitted the
any,
annexation petition.
Do we annex, but we are not annexing in the roads?
Not at this time, correct. Just from a county perspective.
do we have with the whole project, I mean, the location was to be determined for that $1 million with the state. Do we have a completion on the purchase of the site yet? Do we have anything completed on Sheets on the red site yet for us to move forward? I mean, we have the commitment, but do we have the final location purchased and all of that? Are we still waiting on stuff for the red box?
So the Jobs Ohio agreement has been executed by Sheets, which was the requirement that we had, that we received a copy of that. Their tax incentives were approved by the state. They are still working through some of the final closing contingencies on the property. One of those was, kind of moving through the petitioning process. We are obviously still a ways from any sort of dirt being turned. So they would have to kind of have.
So
the property
it lists a site on there because what I'm seeing and stuff, it says site to be determined. Has that been changed?
on what document are you referring to?
This is Jobs Ohio, this is from the Common Control Board, and the things were signed. That they went through and approved of. So it says the total estimated eligible road work cost is $2,171,206.
The-
Project site for Sheets, site is to be determined in the city of Findlay, Hancock County. And I mean, I'm just, and then it's also supposed to have additional dates and things that have to be met by. Wondering if you have those dates, so we're matching up when we're moving forward and starting construction, that everything is there.
So construction would not begin on our side until the property is closed on. Though they put that in the public documents, this is the defined site. So I can't speak to the state agreements, especially the state controlling board is different than the Jobs Ohio agreement, which is the
They're the
document
ones
that's
that approved it.
I'm not going by just one agreement, and that's part of the reason I need to have.
I understand that. I'm stating that the Jobs Ohio agreement is the document that we specified for the contingencies in the legislation that was passed.
So it has a
Controlling-
location, that's all I care. The location, the is in there.
So what I'm looking for, if you guys are ready on the
Right,
appropriations.
let us do the motion. first.
Sounds good.
The motion that I have wrote is, motion is the intent of the Water and Sewer Committee to approve a 16-inch water line on Township Road 230 from County Road 212 to Township Road 99, and a 24-inch sewer from the western existing sewer connection to the east on Township Road 99 to the intersection of Township Road 230.
Brilliant.
I will second that.
Okay, I will rewrite that. You guys sign that.
You don't want it to say once you have the purchase, the site is completed? Or we're gonna go ahead and move forward before.
No,
They should be specific.
okay, so that motion has been the water and sewer. Take a vote. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay, that's the end of the water and sewer meeting. That was the one with the appropriations meeting at 4:51. Okay.
Up front, yeah.
All right, as far as the appropriations, Jim, I'm gonna let you go ahead with this. What are your concerns with what we need to,
What I'm looking for is some criterion from you folks
okay,
as to what constitutes my ability to release the money and a document from the Ohio Department of Development, although it's wonderful that they were able to do what they did, did not meet the intent of what we discussed in executive session. We were very clear, both
I'm
in,
sorry.
both in the council minutes and in executive session and then other conversations I had with the head of appropriations, that it was important. We had an understanding that this project was going to happen. In other words, it was very clear the council said that we needed to know that enough things had fell into place that the project was moving forward. So I have, I guess, a couple questions. I guess, did you guys have anything specific? And Holly's already asked one thing. The mayor's already discussed one thing, but you as a committee, do you have some specific things you want to see? Ultimately, it's up to you. And when you tell me, I'll go. But I jotted a couple things down. And one was, yeah, that absolutely, the property has not transferred. The property had full courthouse record today. It's still sitting in the owner's name. Stella Buchanan, I guess, is who owns the property online. So one of the things, it would be that the property does actually transfer to either Sheets or whoever's their holding company, or whoever's going, whether it be the port, if they do it in the port or whatever they're going to do. Is that a reasonable request? The other thing is Jeremy mentioned, and Jeremy, are you still online there?
Yes.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned was you're hoping to get some easements. I would think it would be wise to get those easements in place prior to us spending that money so that you have what you want. And you wouldn't see any problem with getting them to agree to any easements if council feels that that's important prior to us spending money, would you?
I mean, no, I, as long as I can put the agreements where I would need them, or put the easements where I would need them, you know, if I can fit in the 230 right away, I'm not going to worry about easements. So,
That
you know,
makes sense.
if I'm allowed to get the easements where I wanted, then yeah, that would be fine.
Yeah, and then also, we also mentioned a review of the impact and rotary fees. Both were mentioned here by this committee at a separate meeting. That I don't think would be contingent on me paying, but it's good that we clarified that you guys are going to review that. But the other thing is I have nothing from Sheets themselves that says that they're good to go, they are moving forward. So I guess at a minimum, for us being good stewards of the community's money, I would think you would want at least those three things, that the real estate has transferred, Sheets has provided us, some type of letter that they're moving forward, because as we all know, the business world changes on a dime, and they could pull that project in a heartbeat before they invest the money in the property or whatever they do, because there's a lot of money being fronted by other entities for them. And I'm not saying they would do that. I'm not being critical of Sheets by this. I'm just being good stewards of our money. And then the third thing being the easements at a minimum, because everything else I see that's in place today, I don't see any clawbacks at all. In other words, until those jobs are there, there's no tax abatement until they start paying taxes. There's nothing for us to claw this money back. So I just want to make sure we've done our due diligence and that I have a good understanding of where council's coming from. You guys may have some other ideas that are good ideas as to what we should make sure is done so we have a good idea this is moving forward. And I want council's opinion. I want to know what council thinks, because that's who instructs me as to where I'm going.
First of all, we haven't spent any money yet, correct?
That I have
And
not
we
paid a
won't,
bill.
so
and I
we
wouldn't
have
do
not, right, so,
And I would just state
Yes.
that given
Yeah.
that the easement is on the Sheets property and we're the ones that are currently working through their annexation approval, which is one of the closing contingencies, all of the current checks are part of what we were aware of and needed to move forward. We're not going to bid this out or start any of the work until we have the easements on the property that's owned by the company that they're waiting on us to do the annexation on. And though I know the auditor would like to hear from you all, I would just state that I wish that these items would have been shared with me prior to this meeting, because I'm sure I could have called Sheets and gotten a letter of support specifically from them and addressed some of the issues that are being brought up at I shouldn't say last minute, but this has been, 6 months of conversations. And I'd rather solve problems and be able to address how we're solving problems with you, rather than take your time to meet to discuss problems that we're gonna have to come back and then discuss again.
I'll never feel bad about having a public meeting about something like this. I think it's good we're having a discussion in this format. It's good that council's aware of what's going on. So I guess.
okay, so
are
basically what
those-
we're
are
looking
those
for
three
are
things
some
reasonable?
documents. Is
Well,
what you're looking for.
I'm looking for council to tell me, Jim, if Jeremy has his easements in place to his satisfaction and the real estate is transferred and we have a document from Sheets that says no offense or buts, they're moving forward. Then
I don't
as
think
far as I'm
that's too
concerned,
much
that's
to
good to
ask
go.
to have that stuff, and I think that everybody's, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I would assume
Yeah,
that
I don't-
everybody on council in this committee would want to see those same things.
Yeah.
I mean.
Right.
is
Pretty
that-
self-evident.
Yeah.
Well, and the problem is it wasn't self-evident by the way this happened, because it happened in an executive session. It was a quick piece of legislation that was passed, and a lot of the discussion couldn't happen because it had already happened in an executive session under those protections. So this is a new process that we're instituting based on how this has gone about. So I appreciate the comment that it's self-evident, but it's something that unfortunately we have to go through.
So can you just make a motion of what you said, Randy? Those three things?
Well, give me just a second. Okay, I'll go ahead. I'm gonna take a stab at it here. I'm gonna make a motion that the administration gets the proper documents, which would be the proper transfer of the property. Who is it being transferred to? That Jeremy goes ahead and discusses with them the easements for the future water line on Township Road 230, or no, along along 99. And also something in writing that Sheets is
From
planning on,
Sheets.
from Sheets, that Sheets is planning on moving forward.
That's good to go.
Second. Jim?
Christina, months earlier, when we talked about the money coming from Jobs Ohio, once it was signed, it's ours. Is that right? Like, so even if they didn't come, it's still ours.
The 629, that there are a number of different grants that are being received. The 629 money would be coming to the community. And I'm not sure, I forget off the top of my head, Jeremy, I don't know if you recall if there's any specific, once the road work occurs, there's not any sort of clawback that occurs to the city, correct, right? Related to obviously the tax incentives, that's going to the company.
Yeah,
So that,
I'm just
we have
talking about
no
the 1.1 That's,
Yeah, the
that's
ODOT.
ours. You got that document from the state. There's nothing that can come back, or it's not, because I also see that the controlling board, they are supposed to have approving meeting dates going forward to meet deadlines. What other deadlines need to be met? Or is that money ours and we're done?
The controlling board, I don't recall off the top of my head all of the different restrictions. One, I can speak to the fact that once any infrastructure work that the city does related to this project, the city is not on the hook to give back any of that. If there's any agreements on the clawback provisions with sheets would be explicitly responsible.
Back to the state, but not to us.
Yes.
Meaning that money is ours. If they renege, they have to
Correct, they have
pay
to
it back to
reimburse
the state.
yeah.
But, so that we have what are you trying to get to? The 1.1, is it in process of coming to us yet? Or there's, because it says that the controlling board has a meeting dates to meet deadlines yet. So do we not have that money or do? or-
Jeremy, have we received any money from the state? I don't believe so, because those are now gonna go to the. Jeremy, can you speak to that?
Sorry, I was on mute. Correct. No, we haven't received any at this time. I haven't seen anything on that yet.
So there's still things that we're having to do or they're having to do before this project moves forward for us to receive the 1.1?
I think on that, the ODOT and the 629 has the commitment on that. A lot of these are not going to be finalized until everything is closed out, because if they start signing signatures and the property acquisition does not go through, that's going to affect that. So a lot of this is on those closing contingencies that they have. But with our normal 629 money that we have with any other project, as soon as that project is a go and is going, and we get those 629 money, that money is then ours pretty much to use for it. It doesn't just, disappear.
Do you
Even if
know
they're
when
going.
that 629 is supposed to be ours? Like, is it next month? Is it January?
It was approved in August, September. My guess is that they are waiting still on the closing contingency items. And then that they probably won't appropriate it. Maybe they'll probably want it off their books before the new year, so I would assume December.
So Randy, are you following that? In other words, Randy, for this,
I'm listening. Go ahead.
for this, it sounds like Jeremy's saying it's kind of a concurrent process. The state's gonna, when they get it good to go, they're gonna release money to us, or possibly the township, depending with the engineer, how it works out, or the engineer. But money's gonna come this way, so concurrently. So from my perspective, we'll view that as a contingency as well. In other words, that the states basically should good to go by saying we're moving forward,
We're
releasing
giving you
those
the money,
funds.
so it's going forward.
Yeah, so I'm gonna view that as a contingency here unless this council tells me they have a problem.
Which isn't a problem because our department heads are not going to start projects if they don't have the money for it. So.
Well, then ultimately though, you end up with that money, and if Sheets doesn't go, then you sit down, you have the conversation, what do we want to do with those funds? Do we want to move forward in a component of this project or whatever? In other words, nothing that I'm doing here would prevent you from exploring other options with those funds. I just want to make sure I have the proper knowledge of when I can release my money for these project expenses, and that's what I think is determined here.
But hey, Jim, isn't that kind of redundancy on that, or kind of you're doing it twice? Because as soon as we do get those funds, I got to do an appropriation to get those funds into our account. So
Yeah, once you got them, I'm good to go. That's really what I'm saying. And there is absolutely, from your understanding, there is absolutely no callbacks on that 1.1 million.
Not from our side, but I'll follow up with Jobs Ohio to make sure that I'm
And-
interpreting that correctly.
And the other thing on here, it says this commitment is only in effect until August 31st. So we probably need to re-verify that commitment's in effect, or that it's not going to
I
impact.
have the document where they accepted it.
Well, but
I guess it's a question. for
I guess,
Chase.
yeah, we just need to make sure,
Tell Chase and find
yeah, the
out.
state's not going to renege on it. So,
Yeah, and then they have 30 days that Sheets had to accept
We're all
it,
on the
and I
same
have
page.
their signed letter
Yeah,
accepting
we're all
it.
on the
There's
same
a
page.
motion and I have a second. So we need to vote on that. For Appropriations Committee, all in favor, say aye. All opposed, nay. Jim, I moved, Jim was seconded. Okay, so you guys know what you need to do.
Yeah, very good. Happy to get it taken care of.
All right, Appropriations Committee is over at 5:05.
Very good.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks, Jeremy. Have fun.
Thanks,
with the rest of your
Jeremy.
conference.
Behave.
Thank you, guys.